Let's welcome on board Shashank Srivastava, Senior ED, Marketing and Sales at Maruti Suzuki India, joining in on the show right now. Shashank, hi, good morning. Great to have you on the show. And I have to begin discussing about the Grand Vitara. I believe the initial bookings were fantabulous. Give us some more color. What do they stand at right now?
So this just crossed the 55,000 numbers. So pretty good, I would say, response so far, considering that we haven't announced the prices yet. So we shall be announcing the prices sometime in the end of September when we start the sales in the Navratra period. So looking forward to our entry into the mid SUV segment. Hopefully, we'll get good volumes and increase our market share in that segment.
So, Shashank, what were you expecting in terms of an internal number for booking?
Actually, when we start, we really don't have a particular number in mind. But yes, an expectation of around 10,000 a month sort of number, because that's what the market leaders in these segments are doing. So we hope to be market leaders in this segment as well. But the response has been pretty good, and let's see how the prices, when they announce, how they affect the market going forward.
Launch booking number will be out, and when will you be announcing the pricing?
Pricing, I just mentioned, we will be announcing in the Navratra period when we start the sales, most probably on the 26th of September. And on the bookings front also, I just told you 55,000 we have crossed at the moment. About 40 to 43% of that is the strong hybrid, the intelligent electric system that we have.
Trying to understand the booking of 55,000 which you shared with us. That's the number for booking, or bookings are still on? Can I still book it? I mean, I'm not...
Yeah, of course.
I can still book it.
Process.
So that 55,000 could reach higher by the time you release the prices. That's what I'm trying to understand from you.
Yes, it can. It can. And of course, I can't really predict that number because 26 is not so far. It's just 3 days away. So on Monday, probably we'll get to know the exact number. It can only go up from here. And judging by what you are saying, I think I can right now say it is 55,001 because you have also decided to book the Grand Vitara.
You know, I'm waiting for the test drive invitation, frankly. Then I'll make up my mind. Okay. Let me be a stubborn customer here.
Yeah, okay.
I'm still waiting for the invitation.
Yeah, you are invited, and I'll ask somebody to get in touch with you and maybe offer the test drive vehicle.
Okay, so yeah. Mr. Bhargav said that the butter from the bread is missing. You said that the butter is not back, but the bread is getting toasted. But now that Grand Vitara launch is there, can I say it's not the butter, now the cheese is going to make a comeback?
You can say that. I think what our chairman was referring to was for the small cars where, because of the pressures of commodity prices going up and also the fact that segment is very, very price conscious. Therefore, the price hikes which we have taken have been much less than the increased cost and thereby affecting the profitability. I think he was referring to that. The cheese part, I think you are referring to the Vitara. There, of course, you can add more toppings to that if you like.
But Shashank, if Maruti is looking at migrating towards SUV and towards new categories, will there be a continuous reboot in the way how the structural margins of the company would move? See, commodity prices is a function of 1 quarter, 2 quarters. So we are not getting into the external factors. But in terms of understanding the margin trajectory, as you move higher, as you trade higher, as you move more towards creating value for customer, then your margin will also move higher. So structurally, is that the thought now? Leave or vacate the entry-level car segment, focus on higher cars?
No, absolutely not. Actually, this is what people feel that, companies will only focus on one type of market. That's not true. So there may be companies who are more into niche segments, but for a market leader like Maruti Suzuki with an objective of 50% market share, it is not possible for us not to focus on focus only on one segment or not to focus on any other segment. So when you mentioned small cars, actually hatches are roughly 40% of the market, 38.5% of the market. If you look at the last full year's data, which is just under 40% that the SUVs are. So if you focus on 40% of the market, which is SUVs, it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily go away from the 38.5% that the hatches are. So for large, for multi-product portfolio manufacturers like Maruti Suzuki with large market share objectives of 50%, it's not possible to avoid any segment and just keep focusing on one. So what we have said recently is that our overall market share has come down because of our lower market share in the SUV segment, and therefore that also needs to be strengthened and reinforced. And that's the reason why we have introduced the new Brezza, which is doing very well in the entry level SUV, and now the Grand Vitara in the mid SUV segment. Both segments are very important. Entry SUV segment being 22% of the market, and 18% is the mid SUV segment. So there's no question of moving away from any segment. And on the margin, the construct, of course, depends on the relative volumes that you sell in each segment. But the caveat here that you are assuming that larger cars always give larger margins. The possibility is more, but it may not necessarily be so, because it also depends on the competitors and their position in that segment. So it's not really given that larger products always have higher margins, but yes, probability of that is more.
No, I'll tell you why we're asking about margins here, Shashank, because yen is now at 145 against the dollar. So, exports obviously must be a lot more viable. We've seen a print of way above 81 also on the rupee just this morning. Volumes in any case are strong. And I'm not just talking about the SUV business, but across categories. So from the traditional Q1 margin of 7.25%, suffice to say that you'll be able to beat this figure by a huge margin, or no?
Yeah, so forward guidance, of course, I'm not able to give you. I'm not allowed to give you forward guidance on margins. However, I must say that the movement of the yen, the weakening of the yen against the dollar quite substantially compared with the rupee against the dollar means that our imports in yen will be cheaper. And you are right, for manufacturers like Maruti Suzuki, most of our imports, a large part of our imports, a significant part of our imports is in yen. So that benefits in terms of profitability. In terms of exports also, as you said, we get more rupees to the dollar for every dollar we export. And therefore, that is also a positive. The third thing which is positive, which is working out in our favor, is the relatively softening of the commodities recently. Although they are still high compared with what they were 2 years back. But there has been a little bit of softening in steel, in copper, aluminum, plastics, and so on. And therefore, that also should help our profitability. Exactly how much, I will not be able to specify here.
Fair enough, but at least you're alluding to the fact that there has been a softening in prices. Morning, Mr. Srivastava. What about the semiconductor issue then? Is that resolving? Because reports seem to be indicating that some of the peers like Honda have cut the car output by 40% in Japan on account of the supply problem. Is the situation improving in India?
Yes, it is improving in India, and definitely if you look at the last 12 months, the problem actually was at this nadir in August of last year, and subsequently we have seen improvements. It was 40% in August of last year, the 40% of our plant production. We are currently at around that 94-95% range. It's still not 100%. That's one, and I think we do not have a visibility when it will become 100%. And the second point is that from now onwards, it's also a matter of how your production matches with the underlying demand pattern. And that, I think, is a big challenge going forward, because that on the overall basis, it appears to be 95% and therefore just 5% away from 100. But in many models, you might see shortfalls, and that is also indicated in the number of bookings that we have. And the model-wise waiting periods are significantly different, not just for Maruti Suzuki, but across the industry.
Shashank, the other thing is, just yesterday we had one of your peers, M&M, raising about $500 million. I mean, that's a sizable quantum, right? $500 million for their EV push. I just wanted to understand whether you are also getting into any sort of fundraising, etc. And going forward, even if you're sufficiently funded, what would the funds utilized be for? Is there any category that you're going to be focusing in on as opposed to the other?
No. Actually, as you know, if we have the Maruti Suzuki's outlook for Indian market is pretty bullish. We are looking at CAGRs of 6.5% or so for the next 8-9 years. About 6 million, we believe, will be the passenger vehicle market in the country in 2030. As a result, and we have always said so, and we have been introducing new models, introducing and investing not only in new models, but also in production capacity. So very recently, we did introduce, as you know, a significant investment in the Kharkhoda plant for additional capacity of almost 1 million units. And also in recently, Suzuki had invested and announced the investment of almost 8,000 crores in the, which is more than $1 billion, in the battery plant in Gujarat. So this is a continuous process of investment, both in capacity, in manufacturing of component, and also in introduction of new products, and that we continue to do because, as I said, we are quite bullish on the Indian market.
Just to wrap it up with a thought, and I think Aisha just raised a very important point. Tata Motors, your peer, they were able to use the engineering capabilities to raise money in the EV business. Mahindra, again your peer, they were able to raise capital in their EV business, even though the EV business is not very large for them. I've always admired Maruti for the engineering capabilities. First small car with AC, first small car with a power window, first small car with a AC power window and a power steering. You have engineering capability. What stops Maruti Suzuki from really creating a large EV business and then perhaps get an external investor, get that validated, because that will create a lot of value for shareholders?
I think it's not about the investment. When you talk about EV, because as you know, Maruti Suzuki has a significant cash reserves, close to 45,000 crores. So it's not about finding funds. I think it's more about how we see the EV market evolving in India. Right now, it's about 1% of the market. Still not, the acceptability is still not there, largely because the battery price is still quite high, and therefore the cost of acquisition is high. And the second barrier is that the charging infrastructure in the country is not good enough for customers to feel confident, and they have what we call the range anxiety. And these are the two significant factors which is preventing the large-scale adoption of EVs in India. So that ecosystem is being built up. And yes, we have announced that we should be in the EV space in the financial year 24-25.
Thank you for taking time out and joining in, giving us a sense as to how some of those issues have been alleviated and, of course, the kind of bookings that we have seen for the Grand Vitara.